That's a good plan. Might want to move it over. Good evening, Council and members of the community, and welcome to the July 7th Committee of the Whole meeting at 6 o'clock. The first order of business is to call the meeting to order, which I just did. Pardon me, might be a little rusty here. I'm going to move to the first order of business, which is to adopt the agenda. Council item B is being requested to be held off for tonight and will be brought back to a meeting in September. So can I get a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
I'll so move the amended agenda.
Thanks, Alex. I'd like to call to question is if everybody's in favor. I'll get there eventually. Okay, the next up is the adoption of the minutes. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes of the June 2nd and June 16th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting? Councillor Flowers.
I move to accept the minutes of June 2nd and June 16th, 2025.
All those in favor? Okay, first up for business is item 5A, and this is the 2026-2028 budget engagement. I'd like to call Ms. Hubrecht, Manager of Corporate Communications, to the podium to begin her presentation.
Good evening, Council. Deputy Mayor Federico, Mayor Janung, and members of Council. I'm pleased to be here with you tonight to share the results of our recent budget engagement. I wanted to quickly introduce a couple people that have joined me here tonight. So we have Carla Schultz over here. Carla is our Public Engagement Advisor, and she has recently joined our team. And then we have Patrick Kaiba behind me. Patrick is with Advanis Research, and he will be sharing the information collected through their company. So Cochrane is committed to improving on how we engage residents through the budget. With the recent Council Task Force, we're really looking at how we can continue to enhance and engage our residents in providing feedback on our budget. This year, we have taken what we have done in previous years and built upon it, always looking for improvement. And our goal is to make it easier for residents to share their priorities and ideas. Over the past 3 years, administration has undertaken a consistent approach to our budget engagement. We have worked with Advanis Research to support our engagement efforts related to the annual budget and provide Council with statistically valid feedback. In addition, administration has offered the same survey through our Let's Talk Cochrane platform, ensuring all residents have the opportunity to participate. This consistency has provided us with the opportunity to compare feedback and look for trends over the last 3 years. One of the things we did differently this year in relation to feedback that we received, we sent, every year before, we have sent a postcard to residents asking them to participate. One thing we heard back from residents was sending a letter addressed to a resident is going to have a higher open rate and a higher engagement. And so we did that this year, and it worked. We had the highest resident participation since we've started this engagement process, up 69% from previous years. This simple change obviously had a dramatic increase, and it's something that I think Advanis will speak to in their presentation in terms of the feedback that they were able to collect. So in total, we had 991 participants respond to our budget engagement this year, and this included 15 people who participated in a focus group. Looking specifically at our Let's Talk Cochrane site, as Advanis will speak to the research that they collected, 151 people joined the survey and completed it online, a slight decrease from the 179 recipients or participants we saw in 2024. We asked survey participants how they found out about the survey, and what we consistently are hearing is social media and the bold signs that Council has spoken to before is a great way to connect with the community and make sure that they're aware of engagements that are taking place. Other options included the Cochrane Eagle, our news alert, our app, our mail out, social media, and utility bill insert. When asked about their preferred tax strategy, the majority identified increased taxes and increased services, and this was followed closely by maintain taxes and cut services. When asked about where they would change variable spending on services, most respondents indicated their preference for service levels to remain the same. The areas where participants indicated they would They would support an increase in our budget was FCSS, Parks and Open Spaces, and Roads. This again has been consistent over the last 3 years. The area where participants indicated they would support a decrease in spend are transit, municipal enforcement, and partner organizations. When asked about other projects or goals that the town should be thinking of when planning for the 2026 budget and beyond, participants identified limiting new initiatives and focusing on maintaining existing services, advocating for strategic investments in infrastructure, healthcare, recreation, and environmental stewardship, and ensuring quality of life, sustainable growth, and fiscal accountability. So we took the feedback collected from the survey and used that to drive a focus group and bring people together to have a more rich and in-depth conversation about those specific areas that we heard as key themes coming out of it. So that was people who are looking at the future growth and the long-term financial sustainability. Specifically, what we were asking people was to, sorry, I've missed my place. Sorry, I'm going to go into this a little bit deeper. So the focus group participants came from the previous engagement or previous focus group that we had done 3 years ago. Sorry, let me just slow down for a second. As council may recall, we hosted a focus group 2 years ago where we asked people to come in and give us feedback on public engagement. Those focus group participants were brought together through Advanus because we wanted to make sure that they were a variety of residents from across the community, representing all demographics. We went back to that same focus group list and asked if anyone was interested in participating again. And what we heard was over half of them came back. The remaining participants were brought together through Advanus to make sure that we, again, maintained proper demographics, proper consistency of participants. So through the focus group, what we clearly heard is that growth is a concern. So this is one of the areas that we really wanted to dig into. We hear a lot of feedback in the community around community growth. And so we wanted to work to better understand what the concern was. There was also interest in how town and developer finances work. The community or the focus group participants wanted responsible spending focused on essentials like water. There was some questions and comments around using Calgary amenities rather than duplicating services, and people appreciating plain language, budget information, and clear presentations. The majority of the participants, one of the other things we asked at the conclusion of the focus group was if participants would be interested in participating in a citizens action panel, something where we could bring citizens back together to have a fulsome conversation on a variety of topics and issues. The majority of participants expressed their desire to participate. We also did a follow-up survey with all focus group participants and asked them if they found value in participating, and 100% said that they did. We look forward to continuing this process in future engagements. So I would now like to turn it over to Advanus to share the survey findings in greater detail. I'd like to welcome Patrick Kaiba.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for inviting me back, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and the rest of Council for this opportunity to present the results from our budget study. So as Kristen mentioned, this is the third year that we've run the study, and we're following the same methodology that we used in the past. So we sent a letter to every household in the community, and we also randomly phoned people both on landlines and cell phone numbers within residents within the town, the town. I apologize, I've actually had a few of these for different municipalities lately, so if I get confused between city and town, please don't hold it against me. The letters that people received, they included a phone number that they could send a text message to, and when they sent the text message, we would reply with a link to the online survey, which they could then do on their phone or on a computer. 85% of people chose to do it on their phone, not surprisingly, if we're sending them a text message. In total, we collected 825 completed surveys. The surveys were completed between mostly in April, but a little bit in May. The first question one of the early questions we asked in the survey was, what is the perceived value that residents receive for the tax dollars that they're spending? And we found results are very similar to what we found last year, where slightly over half, about 59%, say that they're receiving good, very good, or excellent value. The ratings were higher among those who are not employed, as well as those who have a high income, over $150,000 or more. The positives that people gave were that there's a good level of services, the infrastructure in the town is well maintained, and that the recreation parks and trails are very good here. Some of the negatives from the people who gave a poor or fair assessment said that they had an issue with a specific service, so one of the services that we'll touch on in a little bit. They feel that the infrastructure is not well maintained, or they don't agree with the current spending practices. And results here, if I forgot to mention, they're nearly identical. There's a few more people statistically said good rather than what we received last year, but that good, very good, or excellent is statistically similar to what we've seen in the past couple of years. We asked residents if they knew what % of their property taxes go to education, with the true result being 35%. Most, about 2/3, said that they didn't know, and only about 8% got within 2%. So between 33 and 37%, only 8% got within that range. We mentioned in the survey that there's the council was wondering if there would be support or opposition to decreasing service levels to maintain taxes. And what we found this year was that there was a slight decrease in the amount of support, so about 1/3 support decreasing services to maintain taxes, whereas about the same, 42%, oppose that. So there's slightly more opposed than support the decreasing of taxes. Those who support a decrease are more often employed and homeowners, and the reasons that they give is that the top reasons were that they want to decrease specific services, they don't want to raise taxes, and that they feel that taxes are already high. Among those who oppose the decreasing of service levels, top reasons they gave were that they want the services maintained to prevent bigger problems in the future. They feel that services attract residents and businesses, and they'd prefer services were more efficient. We then said that here's 4 different ways that the budget could be changed. You could increase the budget or increase taxes to increase services. You could increase taxes to maintain services, so that's a cost of living increase. You could choose to maintain taxes at what they were last year, but that might come with a decrease in services because of cost of living, or you could decrease taxes and decrease services. And the results were quite split. The largest group there said, about 1/3 of them said they would like to increase taxes to increase services, but there still were quite a few that would like to either maintain or decrease taxes. The cutting the services options were favored by younger residents and those who are employed, whereas the increasing of the taxes were favored by older residents, those who aren't employed, and high income residents. We then showed the residents the percentages of the budget that go to non-discretionary and discretionary spending. So the non-discretionary spending are areas that are difficult to adjust the budgets for. So those include council, corporate services, and planning services. And then the 60% discretionary services, those are the ones that we wanted to collect feedback on. And then we showed them this breakdown here of how the 9 different budget items that we asked about, what % of the discretionary budget goes to each of these items. And then we asked them how they would adjust the budget, which we'll get into in a second here. But we also asked if they were aware that the budget is available online, and 70% said that they were aware. So now looking at all 9 budget items together, I want to draw your attention to that middle green bar. In all cases, that bar is the largest bar. And what that middle green bar is telling us is that residents want to keep the budgets the same as what they were last year. The darker green bar on the left, that's the % that want to see the budget increase, and then the blue bar is the percentage of residents that want to see the budgets decrease. The 3 where the increase is the largest are for parks and open spaces, FCSS, and roads. And then the three largest areas for decreases are with the public transit, partner organizations, and municipal enforcement. One item I'll mention right now on public transit, the challenge there is it often has a large percentage who want to decrease. And that's because if you're not using transit, you don't see the value in it. It's very difficult to see the value. So whereas if you are using it, then it's super important to you. We don't ask in the survey who's using it and who isn't, but I bet you that if we were to ask that, you'd find that 39% are mostly people who don't use the service. So something to keep in mind. All right, so these are the three budget items or services where there was the largest increase, percentage that wanted to increase. In all three cases, the results are the same for increase, statistically similar to what it was last year. So there's no real change here. The one arrow that you may see there is with FCSS, where there's slightly more that want to keep the budget the same. So with the parks and open spaces, the top reasons given for wanting to increase the budget are to maintain the existing parks and open spaces, to improve physical and psychological health, and to make the town and neighborhoods more attractive and places for people to live. For FCSS, the top reasons that the 24% there gave to increase were to help provide affordable support services, and they think that the funding should continue to increase to keep up with population growth. And then roads, the last one where there was a high percentage that wanted to increase. Top reasons were given that they want the roads to be better maintained. The cleaning and sanding of roads should be done sooner or more often. And they'd like more vegetation next to roads in the medians and boulevards to be better maintained. Next, we've got fire services, business development, and RCMP. For both fire services and business development, there's statistically more who would like to keep the amount, the budget the same. These results here are very similar to what we saw in 2023. So there was a bit of a decrease in 2024, and now it's back to 2023 levels. Similarly, there's also a decrease in the percentage that say they want to see the funding decrease for these two services. Just looking at, I'll just highlight the groups with the highest percentage. So for fire services, we've got 18% say they want to increase. The top reasons given there were that they feel it's essential to the community to handle population growth and for the safety of residents. For business development, where there's 22% that want to decrease compared to only 17 that want to increase. So the top reasons they gave to decrease the budget was that they feel the money could be better used for other services. Current business development needs are meeting the needs of the community, and because they feel that business development is not a priority at this time. And then RCMP, again, slightly more would suggest decreasing the budget than increasing the budget. And the reasons they give in that case is that they feel that existing police presence should be adequate, or they suggest that the police focus less on traffic and speeding enforcement. And then finally, we've got these last three here where there's the largest percentage suggested to decrease. Again, the results for public transit, municipal enforcement, and partner organizations are statistically similar if you look at that remain bar. So the results, again, are not changing. Slightly fewer did say to decrease the budget for municipal enforcement, and slightly more said to increase the budget for partner organizations, although for partner organizations, it's still only 1 in 10, give or take. The top reasons to decrease transit were that they said that they don't use it. That was among 61% of people of that 39%. Like I mentioned, if you're not using it, you don't see the value, or at least residents don't. They feel that they don't need the e-scooter or e-bike program, and they feel that riders should be charged more for transit. Top reasons to decrease municipal enforcement are that they should feel that less focus should be on speeding and traffic enforcement. They suggest that roadways, sidewalks, and pathways are safe enough currently, and that the current enforcement levels should be able to handle population growth. And then finally, with partner organizations, the reasons, top reasons to decrease include that the cost of these partnerships are larger, they think, in their minds, are larger than the benefits that they provide. So whether that's true or not, there could be a educational piece there. to highlight how the partner organizations are providing more benefit. There's a lack of accountability in their minds with some of the partners, and that they feel Cochrane has enough facilities to meet the current needs of the community. We then show these 6 different priorities and asked residents which of these priorities they suggest that council focus on. Again, results are quite split. The top 2 were about a quarter each. We're planning for future growth and long-term fiscal sustainability. Both of those obviously are very similar. If we look at the top 3 there, and we might consider those tax-related priorities, 49% selected one of those, and then the 2 on the left, if you want to consider those a long-term focus, then 33% would be one of those. And then finally, we asked residents if they had, this was an open-ended question, if they had any other thoughts on what council should focus on, any priorities that they want council to consider. The bottom row there says don't know at 44%, so 2 out of 5 said that they didn't know. And so among those who did provide, the top 2 or 3 there were expanding new outdoor areas, which goes along with that parks and recreation. They'd like to improve a specific service, which actually this percentage increased from previous years. And so you can look at the budget items there if you want to increase budgets to see which services you might want to increase. And then that they feel that roads, access, and traffic flow could be improved. And that's it. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take them.
Councillor Reid?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of information here, and I appreciate the Reader's Digest version that you provided us. A comment, first of all, is that this information puts the council, the next council, in a position to be able to make really informed decisions that we really didn't collectively have during our first term. And so I think this is a vast improvement, and I'm so grateful that we were able to do this. I'm just curious about the statistical sample size. So the presentation that you provided, is it based on, I think the pages are, or at least in the report I printed off weren't numbered, but under the executive summary, it said there were a total of 151 adult Cochrane residences. Was your presentation based on that 151 or
No,
a larger sample size?
This is based off of 825
Okay.
total.
And that is a valid sample size in relation to your, okay.
Yeah, the minimum we typically go for in a community would be about 400. And so since we've doubled that, it's a really good sample size. The margin of error for anyone who knows statistics is about 3.4%.
Right.
So results should be accurate within 3.4%.
Perfect. I ask that question every year. So the second thing is, I thought I understood you to say that every household in Cochrane received a letter. Is that the case?
That was the plan, yes. They should have all received one.
Okay. And then in the accompanying document that we had, the cover pages, the key themes, one of the themes, the second bullet says that they are interested in understanding the developer-town relationship, which was different than I think the PowerPoint presentation. Is there some reason that was different?
That I'm not sure if you have a
Yes.
response.
Thank you, Councillor Reid, through Deputy Mayor Fedayko. Councillor Reid, the 151 participants were the participants who took place on Let's Talk Cochrane on our own engagement software, not through the Advanus software or through the Advanus survey. So that's the difference in those numbers. And then the question that you're referring to is actually a question or a theme that came up in the focus group. So not through the Advanus conversation.
So the statement that they, being those who were sampled or surveyed, were interested in understanding the developer-town relationship is valid?
Yes, through the focus group.
And then if I could ask one additional question, I don't want to hog all the time, but further down on those bullets and under the key themes, it says residents are interested in leveraging Calgary's amenities rather than duplicating them. And can you add a little more color or flavor to that?
Absolutely. When the focus group was taking place was approximately the same time that the SLS conversation was happening. And so there was interest in the participants around utilizing Cochrane or Calgary's recreation facilities as opposed to potentially investing in more Cochrane-specific facilities.
Interesting, thank you. Yeah, again, I think overall these are the survey results and the focus groups are really useful in terms of being able to move the agenda forward for council, so thank you.
Councillor McFadden?
Yes, thank you very much. So just a follow-up question on the statistically valid perspective of this. So in the budget planning survey, we received 825 surveys responded to that. But is that like demographically balanced, age balanced, all those pieces, or was it just 825 people who responded, and we believe that that's statistically valid because it represents an appropriate size of the population?
We don't ask very many demographics in this study. We do ask age, and we did weight the results to the population proportions of Cochrane. The weights were quite reasonable. I believe they should be in the report, in the appendix. But yeah, it's still statistically valid. Weighting is a very common analytical technique to make sure you're not hearing too much from one group that you might have oversampled. And typically in a study, older folks are more likely to do surveys than younger folks. So typically you have to weight up the results or the results from the younger 18 to 34 crowd and weight down the 65 plus crowd. So it is statistically valid.
Okay, but this is 825 people who voluntarily chose to participate. We didn't go out and
Correctly.
recruit them. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Councillor Flowers?
Yes, there was a ton of good information in there. It's really great to be able to compare it to last year. But I'm concerned about if we don't make some changes and the public gets asked over and over and they have the same answer, are they not going to lose interest in wanting to fill it out?
So we've asked similar surveys in other municipalities, and residents will continue to fill it out because they want to have a voice. Your comment about modernizing or adding new questions is a very good one, and I would support that. The fact now that you've got 3 years where the results aren't changing a lot every year means that there's probably some opportunity to change how we're asking questions, maybe ask some new questions, drop some of the questions that are less relevant to council.
My thoughts were more around let's listen to what they said and make some changes. Because they gave the same feedback last year, in particular FCSS could use some more funding, which I strongly believe, but we didn't do that, so hopefully we do this year. The Colt bus, the same complaints keep coming up over and over, so hopefully we make changes this year and can get some different results next year. The other question I had was around the e-bikes and the scooters. We don't actually put money into those programs, do we?
I'm not sure.
Through the Deputy Chair, Councillor Flowers, no, I do not believe we fund those services.
They were mentioned and it sounded like it was one of our programs, but we don't actually put any dollars into it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just add to that, education is a big piece of municipal feedback. It's perception's reality, right? So if they see all these e-bikes, they might think that council's paying for it or their taxes are paying for it. And if they don't know, then that's a education piece or a marketing piece that could help put out news bulletins or what have you to make it clear what is and isn't being funded by taxes.
Yeah, if I may just add to that through the chair, I think you can see this reflected in the question around what percentage of your property taxes go towards education, whereas a lot of folks still don't have a really strong awareness of that as part of it, and why we continue to try to work, I think the education component of that. Obviously, the primary function of the budgetary feedback process is to try to get the best gauge possible of how the community is feeling about the direction of services and taxation, but it's also a really, really important opportunity for us to interface with them in some of those ways around educating them about services, some of those that belong to the town, some that don't. There was another part in the survey I think you could see where what do you want to see happen in services, and I don't remember the number. I think it was 3 or 5% said more schools, which is not a municipal function. So still lots of work to do in terms of keeping our residents as informed as possible, but I do think that this is a really important secondary part of the budget engagement process.
Anything else? Okay. Mayor Janine?
Yeah, thank you. As Councilor Rita said, I really appreciate that we're doing this. Excuse me, and I think we need to continue. I think, to Councilor Flowers' point, I think tweaking the questions perhaps has some merit. But I guess I'd really like to give kudos to the department around the improved engagement. I think we're leaps and bounds ahead of where we were, and always constantly striving to improve that, so I appreciate that. Really, for me, I don't really have a lot of questions, more just key takeaways. Focus on civic literacy, which you mentioned, education program Mr. Derricott talked about, so I'd like to see some of that maybe in our future. Transit services, there was significant feedback on that, but I think I just want to note that that was and I don't know how to say this, like we did invest in changes in transit for this year, but they haven't taken effect yet. So I would be interested to see if we move that needle next year, if the improvements that we've made actually improve the service and hit the ground in that way. So that would be an argument maybe to keep the question the same, to see if we are making a difference. Accountability of partners needs to improve. I put an asterisk beside that as well, just as I think we're making strides in that in the investment we've made in the departments, and I think we're going to be able to reap some of that in the future, so I look forward to that. But I just have, I guess, general question to administration would be, and I think I understand, but next steps from here is, excuse me, incorporating this into building the budget. So administration is going to take all of this feedback, and that will inform part of the budget, well, not deliberations, but creation. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Janine. Through the chair, yes, these results have been shared with our leadership team with the expectation that everyone is reviewing them and looking to incorporate the feedback into their draft budgets as they're preparing them. Our department will be going back and following up with each department in early fall to understand how that was done and what that looked like, so we can make sure that we're reporting back to the community on how we took what was heard and put it forward in the draft budget. The other component that we're doing this year that is new is a follow-up to the focus group. So we brought these 15 people together and had a really robust conversation. And as I shared, we asked them if they'd want to come back and participate in a citizens action panel going forward, but we also asked them to come back and participate in a second focus group this fall. So we'll be also taking the budget to that group after it's presented to council and sharing with them, here's what the budget it looks like, here's how we've incorporated that feedback, and how does that resonate with you, and getting some more feedback in that way. So trying to continue that conversation with this group that has already been so engaged.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With there not being any other questions, I do have a couple of comments. I too am happy to see the survey results come up. It's a big improvement. It's almost double. So I'm happy to see that. Similar though to Councillor Flowers' questions and concerns, the one comment that I got from a lot of people that I know is that the questions were the same as previous year, and I think it is time for us to change those up somewhat, because I think people are starting to notice, and with that becomes probably a lack of wanting to do it, I think, in future years, if they notice that all the questions are exactly the same, even if it's maybe perhaps a different order or a different section coming forward. I think that would be beneficial. I'm very happy to hear about the focus group and the civic panel. I think those are key things that I think Councillor McFadden and I know myself have been asking for a while, to have just a different level of engagement around the budget, just to include more people's feedback, and to educate people as well. So I'm glad to hear that those will continue and hopefully expand over time. Councillor Flowers also asked the question about, and this is something that I came up with, is that I read through all those comments, every single one of them. What are we actually doing to address the comments? Like if we're just taking comments in and there's really no way of us being able to go back out to the community and say, hey, you know what? We've noticed that 60%, 40%, whatever the number is not happy with this particular service, or they're wanting to do something different. What are we actually doing to publicly address that and then tie it back into the actual budgetary comments?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor Federico. Just going back to your first question around, are we looking at changing the survey? Absolutely. We know that probably next year is a time to reevaluate and look at how we can do things differently. This year was a really great opportunity to have 3 years of consistent data that we could bring forward to council and just show how things are trending. And I think that that's been the greatest takeaway to me, is seeing the consistency and the feedback that we're getting back. So I think there was value in that, but yes, as we move forward into next year, we definitely want to make sure we're reevaluating the survey approach and continuing to look for opportunities to improve. Sorry, now I've lost your second question.
The second question, just with all the comments that have come forward, with people asking for changes or what they're looking for, what are we doing to kind of go back out to the community to say, hey, you know what, we've heard your comments. Now we're going to make or implement these particular changes and really tie it back to what was stated in the budget, like for their comments, because I think sometimes we make those changes, but it never loops back around to this is what we really heard, and this is why we particularly made the changes that we did.
It's definitely a challenging to address all of the comments. When you look at like the number of comments that have been identified and the breadth of different options that people are bringing forward, it's hard to specifically look at how we could identify each one. I think what we're trying to do is bring that information forward to council to help you understand the community sentiment, so that when you're evaluating the budget coming forward or different conversations that are happening, it gives you a sense of community sentiment. We definitely go back and share the What We Heard report on our Let's Talk Cochrane site. We share it out to anyone who signed up to receive our emails through the Let's Talk Cochrane site, so that they can also see what feedback is being collected. I don't know if administration, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. Through the deputy mayor to council, just to add to that. So I think it's important to keep in mind that with the surveying mechanism, the best value in the feedback is in the broad trends that are submitted and not at the individualized comment level. It's nearly impossible to respond at a budgetary level based on those individual comments. So we do look at the trends, and I think we covered a lot of those where we see a significant portion of our community preferring certain strategies around whether it's taxation or service levels. And those are the things I think that really, really influence administration. And we try our very best to communicate that back. If you go back and watched last year's budget, we begin by saying, hey, remember we did this budget survey? Here's the things that we saw. Here's how it's reflected in this budget, because we know it's really critically important that the community sees their input reflected in the outcomes. That's not necessarily one of the challenges. That's not necessarily going to resonate at a very, very individualized level, because obviously such a broad group of people with varied interests that it's never easy to meet the needs at that level. But we really appreciate, we've gotten a lot of value administratively out of seeing this information from our community, and we feel more confident when we're building a budget because we have this information and we can align our practices and our approaches with that. So we'll definitely take that feedback and continue to work to do our very, very best to reflect back how this work will impact the budget that administration recommends council consider in the fall.
Yeah, I understand that's a difficult thing to be able to inform. I guess only one last question that I have, and I ran across this a couple different times in people's comments, is that what is the standard? So like when you talk about maintaining taxes, I think it would help if there was a definition of what is the actual service level that they're currently receiving. Because if you don't know what you're currently receiving, it's very difficult, I think, to ask somebody, would you like to increase or decrease services? And I noticed a number of people said, I have no idea what I'm actually receiving. So I don't know if it's perhaps maybe more of a definition type of idea that could go out, or what we're seeking for, because I think if you're asking a broad-ended question, people don't really know how to answer it if they don't actually know the base level. So maybe just something to keep in mind as we go through the next budget. Council, any other questions? With that, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
With 5B being removed, we are going to jump to 5C, the Operations Center Needs Assessment Update. And I will call Mr. Hubble, Director of Operations Services, to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present an update of the Cochrane Operations Center Needs Assessment Project. For more than 35 years, Cochrane Operations has delivered essential municipal services from its 3-acre facility at 124 Griffin Road. Over this period, the town's population has expanded significantly, from 4,900 residents to an estimated 38,000 today, and is projected to reach 90,000 by 2050. This sustained growth has placed increasing demands on operational capacity, staffing, fleet, and equipment. Despite multiple rounds of facility reconfiguration and site optimization, the existing location no longer supports current or anticipated service levels. Recognizing the need, Council approved a capital investment in the fiscal year 2024 budget to undertake a comprehensive Operations Center needs assessment. This initiative is intended to strategically evaluate the short to long-term space requirements to ensure continued service delivery as our community evolves. The purpose of this assessment is to proactively align operational infrastructure with Cochrane's growth trajectory. It's not about more space, it's about ensuring we can continue to meet community expectations with a sustainable, well-planned operational support system. The principles applied for this project are future-proofing. We're building with the long term in mind. This means planning for scalability, adaptability, and avoiding short-term fixes that lead to higher long-term costs. Researching precedents and applying best practices. We're not reinventing the wheel. The operational growth pressures we're facing aren't unique to Cochrane. We're learning from other communities and organizations that have faced similar challenges. Engaging stakeholders. The success of this project depends on collaboration. We're committed to meaningful engagement where involved departments feel heard and have the opportunity to influence outcomes. Fiscal responsibility. Every decision must reflect a balance between cost, value, and impact, enabling us to deliver high-quality services within our means. And departmental and service synergies. When teams collaborate effectively, we reduce duplication, improve outcomes, and provide a better experience for the public. This slide captures the core elements of our scope and the deliverables we're producing. We started with a full space needs analysis, planning to service a population of up to 90,000 to ensure the facility can accommodate long-term growth. Next, we're benchmarking against peer municipalities to learn from those who have already faced similar challenges and to validate our assumptions. From that, we've developed total facility size recommendations that include both building and yard requirements. We've also evaluated service delivery models, centralized versus decentralized, and assessed their implications in terms of cost, efficiency, and flexibility. A key deliverable is a phased growth plan, identifying when and how expansion should occur, along with triggers tied to population thresholds. Supporting all of these are presentation-ready materials, charts, schematics, and visual renderings, designed to clearly communicate findings to stakeholders. And finally, everything is backed by clear justifications for land use, service model selection, and budget planning, ensuring council and leadership can make informed, confident decisions. A wide range of departments have been actively involved in this project so far, including roads, parks, utilities, waste and recycling, engineering, geomatics, capital projects, civil land, facilities management, fire, operations admin, and the incident command post, which was formerly upstairs in the ECC. You'll notice that some of these teams, like engineering or capital projects, aren't traditionally considered part of operations and are currently based out of the ranch house. Their inclusion has been intentional. It allows us to explore interdepartmental synergies and co-location opportunities while also helping us free up more space in the ranch house for the teams that will remain here. This strategic alignment supports both operational efficiency and broader space planning goals across the organization. Arcadis Engineering was awarded the project in late 2024. They're a global firm, 36,000 staff, 30 countries. They have extensive municipal infrastructure experience, including a strong Canadian municipal portfolio. Their experience ensures that Cochrane will benefit from best practices and innovative yet practical solutions. A few samples of their relevant work experience include the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo Public Works Building, the Red Deer Civic Yards, and the Grand River Traffic Maintenance Facility. They have many other examples. These are just 3 that I chose. Our project is being delivered in 3 project phases. We're now finalizing the deliverables of phase 2. Phase 1 was our investigation phase and focused on understanding our current situation and laying the groundwork for informed decision-making. We began by analyzing our existing operational spaces to identify inefficiencies and limitations. From there, we conducted a formal needs assessment to clarify both current and future service requirements. We also looked outward, comparing how other municipalities manage their operational spaces to gather best practices and benchmarks. Parallel to this, we reviewed all town-owned land to evaluate siting options. And finally, we explored potential departmental synergies, identifying opportunities to co-locate services or share resources more effectively. Phase 2 was our data interpretation and solution finding stage, which focused on turning data into direction. We've evaluated both short and long-term space needs, ensuring our plans can scale to support future populations. We weighed the pros and cons of centralized versus satellite service models. A centralized campus promotes efficiency and team cohesion, while a decentralized model improves geographic reach and service flexibility. We also identified current and operational pinch points, areas where space, process, or layout is limiting performance and service levels in our community. Next, we explored land options, comparing the feasibility and benefits of using town-owned sites versus acquiring new land. Finally, we developed a phasing strategy for implementation and produced a preliminary blocking and stacking plan to visualize how departments might be arranged in a future facility. As I mentioned earlier, we're just finalizing the deliverables of phase 2, and phase 3 will be where everything comes together. We'll consolidate all findings into a comprehensive final report and presentation that clearly outlines the project's background, guiding principles, and the full body of data collected throughout the process. This phase includes a summary of our evaluation process, a high-level phasing budget, and detailed recommendations on how to move forward with the future operations center. We'll also present a refined phasing plan, associated costs, and supporting visuals like concept renderings, site plans, to help bring the vision to life for decision makers and stakeholders. This concludes my presentation. I look forward to bringing council the finalized report in the fall of this year and welcome any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll get to questions. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, most of which I had already read in the package. I appreciated that. What was the procurement policy as it relates to these consultants? Was this advertised and we follow appropriate procurement policy?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, absolutely. It was posted through our normal mechanisms for a larger capital project, which this was.
I thought that was the case, but I think it was wise to say it out publicly. Secondly, has this been on the 10-year capital plan for some time?
Through the chair, this project, the analysis project itself, was in, I'm not sure if this project was in there. The land acquisition and the potential facility is in the 10-year capital plan. So the dollars associated with
Replacement of
the
this
project
facility
forward is in the capital plan.
Okay, thank you. You know, given the last presentation that we had about taxes and services, I'm not sure what the appetite is for the community for this, but I recognize that there was a reference to infrastructure, and I think in my mind, if council had to look at what it would cost for this facility in relation to other facilities, for example, fire hall and other services we need, that'll be an interesting discussion. I've noticed in other communities though, where they're taking town-owned or community-owned facilities and making them into multi-purpose facilities. So there's the one that just opened in Calgary where it seems to be a fire hall, actually some housing, community gardens. Has this task force or this group looked at beyond just a regular carbon copy of what we've got and just bigger? Because this is what, be honest, and reading this, that's what the takeaway was. It was just looking at what we've got, population's bigger, we need something bigger, right? And I'm wondering if the people are actually thinking outside the box in a more creative way of looking at what this facility might incorporate.
I'll just go to the team. So when we look at the project stakeholders that I put back up, Councillor Reid, some of these aren't what you would say are your typical operations team. And I'll point to fire, for instance. So, you mentioned co-location. That is something that we're absolutely thinking about. We've engaged the fire team, although the fire group is doing a fire service master plan that's working in tandem. Right. When we start looking at sites, we'll be looking at these type of shared locations, whether it be fire, the incident command post, those type of pieces.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not talking necessarily about the site, I'm talking about the facility, right? A joint use facility, which I think is what I was trying to reference. So you could see possibly a, whatever is required in terms of the operational building and a fire hall potentially being one and the same building. Much larger building, of course, but one and the same building?
One in the same, fire and the operation center co-located?
Yeah.
Yes, as well as a consolidation of our eco center and waste and recycling on the same site, same building as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Flowers?
I just remember that we toured the town shop years ago and how crowded it was and terrible working conditions. So I know that it's really needed and it's not going to get any cheaper. So I'm glad that you're getting on with it.
Councillor Nagel?
To what extent can this capital expense be funded by offsite levies?
Through the chair to Councillor Nagel, I don't believe that an operations center is eligible to be funded by off-site levies. Not my area of expertise 100%, but my initial delve into that question was that it can't be specifically funded by.
Okay. Through the chair, I can just confirm that, Councillor Nagel, it is not off-site levy eligible.
And did we have a specific location sorted out already for the land acquisition? Or is that still something that's to be determined?
We do not have a specific location identified yet. Through the study, we've identified north or south of the river, aligning with, say, the growth blooms of the community, and we've explored the synergies of those. For instance, say, parks. With Horse Creek Sports Park opening, if we were to put a operations campus co-located to that, that would drastically reduce the travel time for the parks equipment that would service that site.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor Janot?
Yeah, not really a question. I just appreciate the approach. Thank you, Mr. Hubble. I was really impressed with the list of stakeholders and the fact that your team is looking at everything that's on the table. I do appreciate Councillor Reid's kind of push into, well, what else? So I think that's probably a key takeaway, but I mean, we just had our public engagement results and many of the responses there was plan for the future, plan for infrastructure, keep services the same. This is a key project in doing just that. So I appreciate the approach that's been taken. Thanks.
With there not being any other questions, I do have a couple comments myself. When is phase 3 due to come back to council?
We will have the completed report to council in the fall of this year.
Okay, similar to kind of Councillor Reid's, I'm actually kind of excited to see the discussion that I think that will occur around this entire project. Maybe a question is, you did talk about a phased approach, because I think for the general part of the community is we can understand that we're growing, but building a building or building a facility to accommodate 90,000 residents when we're not even half of that is going to be a difficult probably approach or understanding of most residents. So when you talk about a phased approach, have we looked at, say, and this is just an example, obviously not anywhere close, and I don't want to compare, but the Garmin that started as a phase 1 and then had the opportunity to grow. Is that what you're considering with this type of facility?
Absolutely, Deputy Mayor, and you've actually nailed one of the key deliverables there, being the phasing plan. So we're considering land acquisition and building construction separately. So we recognize that when it comes to acquiring land, we should purchase for the long term. One of the strategies we're looking at are buy for the 90,000, but don't build for the 90,000. Build for an intermediate strategy, and we've identified roughly 68,000 in 15 years. So that'd be it. Yes, 68,000 in 15 years. So our goal is to build a facility for that, yet use the same principles that Garmin has used recently. Prepare the building to add additional floors or to build next to it. So you're absolutely right. We don't intend to come to council, or I don't intend to come to council and ask for a facility for 90,000 that would support a community of 90,000. But we may look at the property, because if we buy the property, we've got it there and we can keep it, and that will ensure that we have the property to build when the time is appropriate.
Thank you. I think that will be probably a lot more palatable as we go forward. And also then it maybe brings in some of the things that Councilor Reid was talking about, different stakeholders maybe coming in, right, and what that looks like over the long-term future. So that sounds like exciting news to me. So we will look forward to seeing you back in fall for phase 3. Thank you for the report.
Wonderful. Thank you, Council.
All right, moving right along to 5D, Invest Greater Calgary Update, a Memorandum of Understanding request. I call Nicole Hanna, Manager of Economic Development, to the podium.
All right. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of council. I am Nicole Hanna, the Manager of Economic Development, and I'm here tonight to provide an update on the Invest Greater Calgary initiative that Cochrane's Economic Development Department has been a part of this last year. Here is the agenda for this evening's presentation. Invest Greater Calgary is a voluntary collaboration to position the Calgary metropolitan region as the most attractive place in North America to invest. It formalizes regional cooperation in 4 key areas: enhancing how we attract investment and create jobs. Originally launched as the Collaborative Regional Economic Development, or CRED initiative, the project now operates under the name Invest Greater Calgary. Cochrane sits alongside 7 major regional players, and this is where Cochrane's voice is heard through active participation in the IGC Advisory Committee. This is an opportunity to align our efforts with regional momentum. The municipal partners include Airdrie, Calgary, Chestermere, Cochrane, Foothills County, the town of High River, the town of Okotoks, and Rocky View County. Some background information. In 2023, the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board, or CMRB, initiated the exploration of a collaborative regional economic development model to enhance investment attraction and support long-term economic growth across the region. Calgary Economic Development was appointed to steward this work in partnership with economic development practitioners and participating municipalities. These communities form the advisory committee guiding this initiative. Since then, the economic practitioners, or the equivalent in each municipality, have come together to form a separate, member-based initiative known as Invest Greater Calgary. This initiative is separate from the CMRB and was not affected by the dissolution in 2024. A dedicated 3-year pilot secretariat has been established to advance a shared approach in identifying, attracting, and supporting regionally significant economic opportunities. The advisory committee is responsible for setting strategic direction and ensuring alignment with local and regional partners. The IGC Advisory Committee identified 4 key focus areas to strengthen efforts to attract regional investment. These areas will guide key projects during the 3-year pilot. And together, these 4 focus areas build our collective economic capacity. The budget covers approximately 5 cornerstone projects for IGC over the pilot term. The Secretariat and the IGC Advisory Committee will identify projects based on high value, high impact opportunities that spur job creation in the region. IGC is positioning the Calgary metropolitan region as the most attractive place in North America to invest and grow business. This is the outline of the 3-year pilot projects with approximately 2 projects per year. In year 1, a sector study and an economic impact analysis. Year 2, investment-ready sites and a specialized economic zone. And 3, investment attraction and foreign direct investment. The IGC Advisory Committee agrees that successful regional collaboration includes a fair and equitable financing structure to cover operational and project costs. For the duration of the 3-year pilot, an annual fixed cost funding formula was selected by the IGC Advisory Committee. Initial estimates suggest the annual cost for participating in the IGC 3-year pilot project is $29,000 over 3 years, approximately $9,668 annually, as outlined by the table. Funding for Cochrane's contribution in 2025 is available from the CMRB funding approved in the 2025 budget. The remaining 2 years would be included in the annual budget for economic development. Funding commitments by member municipalities follow an agreed-upon funding model of a 10% shared total cost, 45% breakdown on members' population, and 45% based on the tax assessment value in each municipality. Additional funding sources will be explored, such as provincial and federal grants, and privately funded based for specific determined projects. Our financial commitment has already been accounted for in the Council's CMRB budget line for 2025. The collaborative approach ensures efficient use of funds and strengthens regional leverage for grants. Overall, Cochrane's portion is 3% of the total cost. The IGC Secretariat will explore external funding sources to support all project development. The projected budget variance is approximately $436,000 over the 3-year term and will be addressed through the pursuit of external funding. To date, $380,000 has already been awarded and secured through IGC. The initiative is funded by all levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipally. The Northern Region Economic Development, or NRED, funding will support collaborative initiatives across the 8 municipalities to develop a shared economic strategy, enhanced investment readiness, and strengthen business retention in the Calgary region. The alignment with Cochrane's plans, IGC aligns with our local strategies. The Strategic Plan 2022 to 2025, a vibrant economy by intentionally attracting a talented workforce to contribute to our community's culture and energy, creating an atmosphere where the modern economy can thrive. Envision Cochrane 2050, economic vitality, for Cochrane to enhance its employment land base through collaboration with regional partners, and by exploring sector-specific strategies which focus on what business and organizations need to successfully locate in Cochrane. And lastly, opportunities to collaborate with regional partners on economic development initiatives and opportunities. Lastly, it will complement our upcoming economic development strategy and work to expand our employment land base and diversify our economy. IGC allows Cochrane to benefit from region-wide investor intelligence and marketing resources while retaining our own community identity. Joining the IGC gives Cochrane regional exposure and shared resources without sacrificing our local initiatives. It will be used as a platform that can elevate our economic potential. Participating will allow us cost-sharing opportunities and enable economies of scale by collaborating with our regional partners. The IGC project team and the advisory committee are currently finalizing partner terms and a service agreement to facilitate the administration of funds. The next steps for today, administration requests that the committee of a whole accept this report as information. We'll be back next Monday on the 14th for a regular council where we will request the IGC sign the memorandum of understanding. And we'll be back later with a service agreement. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I will now be joined by Mark Krasinski, Director of Community Growth, to answer any questions.
Thank you for the information. Councillor Reid, you're up first.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Nicole, I wanted to begin by saying, and I know some of my colleagues might cringe at this, but you're doing an excellent job in terms of economic development from what I'm hearing from the community, outside the community as well, and what I'm seeing in terms of a product. You've really moved the agenda forward, so I wanted to publicly thank you for that. In terms of this presentation, I think $29,000 is a really good investment and a return on investment in terms of this proposal. And I mean, even if there were just one business to come into the community, $29,000 over 3 years, that really is a good return on investment. My question was, who would represent us in terms of this going forward? There must be some form of participation. Is it you that then is the conduit to this group?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, yes, I would be the representative for Cochrane.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor McFadden?
Oh, yes, thank you. No, I certainly wouldn't cringe at celebrating success, so that's great to hear. And I'm always a fan of collaborating and building partnerships, and I think this is bringing forward kind of the heart and the intent of the Calgary Regional Partnership and later the CMRB is like, how can we partner to make the region succeed together? So I certainly support that theme. What are kind of some of the tangibles, though, that we're going to be able to see out of the 3-year investment?
Scroll back. So this right now is our 5 specific projects that we are hoping to undertake in the 3-year pilot project. So the first year is the sector study and an economic impact analysis. So those two would be great to create that baseline. Once we start with the secretariat, then we will move into the actual projects we get to work on.
So can you just unpack that for me? What's a sector study?
Through the chair. So an economic sector study would look at the region, the population, the growth, the business that you have. We look at economic indicators, supply and demand, and then we'd start to determine the needs for each community.
I think if I, go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Through the chair, Councillor McFadden, if I may kind of jump in there a little bit, a bit of the sector study, what they're looking at, these are common requests that we get from industry as well, looking to get valuable information about a potential business looking to locate to the region. And it could be a range of different variables that they're looking for, and this will identify some of the gaps that we might have. It might be an employment base, it might be looking for certain skilled labor with a specific type of engineering degree within graduates from the University of Calgary or Mount Royal or some of our technical schools like Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. A good example of the tangible benefits that you will start being able to see through participation in Invest Greater Calgary is actually a sector-related study panel that's speaking tomorrow, or later this week, sorry, on Thursday at the Calgary Stampede, where through working with us in the partnership, Garmin is one of the panel members talking about how locating their office in Cochrane has helped them grow their business and the benefits that it's had to them, and why they feel like other businesses who are attending the talk in Calgary at the Stampede may want to also look at Cochrane. So I think it's a good example of how our participation isn't really just Calgary-centric, even though it is working with Calgary Economic Development and 6 other municipalities in our region. We've already started to see some initial benefits, and that's a great forum for us to be able to highlight Cochrane and the advantages of our community through a third party that could have chosen to locate anywhere but chose Cochrane.
Okay. Yeah, because when I was first hearing the explanation, I was like, what is our community? What's those type of things? It was like, surely we already have that information after years with the CMRB and through our own information. So what I'm hearing you say, a sector study, is also information that we're going to be able to give to interested businesses that are looking, so that we can give them kind of the sales sheet of Cochrane. Like, if you want to move to a place that has engineers, we've got a highly educated population for you. Those type of sales sheets.
Through the Deputy Mayor Vidego to Councillor McFadden, that's correct. And also the economies of scale and the cost savings we would realize. We've looked at done some initial looks at the cost of accessing some of this information. There's an example are companies like Environics that can be very expensive, in the tune of $100,000 a year for 100, let's say, data sets. And you may need more over the course of the year, not likely for an organization this size. But this allows us to maybe access higher quality data purchased for the region that we're able to pull on that'll help hopefully attract businesses and fill those gaps that we have. We do have a lot of information, but I'd say there's room for lots of improvement as we invest further in economic development. And this will help us share that financial burden across the region and not have to carry it alone.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thank you for that expansion. I appreciate it.
Councillor Flowers?
Yes, my comments and question was similar to Councillor McFadden. You did answer some of the details about what we could see as benefits, but I wondered if there was anything else. Is it grant opportunities? What could we miss out on if we don't join in?
Sure. To the chair, to Councillor Flowers. So one of the ones we looked at when we received our NRED grant for this year for Cochrane is they look for an impact on regional collaboration. So this one alone fills that bucket. They themselves applied for the same NRED grant, received one for $300,000 with the sole intent of promoting regionalism and collaboration between communities. So I think that one is it opens up more grant opportunities.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track, and I can't imagine not joining. There's such potential in sharing resources and working together, so thank you for that.
Mayor Janine?
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't going to speak, and then Councillor Flowers, you asked the same question as Councillor McFadden, and I'm in full support of moving forward with this for all the reasons that everybody's already stated, but maybe just to fill in a little bit more about the background of where CMRB was headed with this when it was under that umbrella was doing exactly what Mr. Krasinski stated about, like, you know, Cochrane might put forward something like, well, we are looking for a hotel. So that would go into the mix, and that would be known in the region now as as something that we're looking to fill. So for our 10,000 a year, maybe we land a hotel. On the other end of the spectrum, we were looking at things that would benefit the entire region as an industry, like the film industry. How could we work together as a region to attract more film making in the Calgary metropolitan region to, as a rising tide floats all boats, right? So that maybe we look at how our business licensing or those types of things. So I really think for the under 10,000 a year, this is a great return, as Councillor Reid has said. Mr. Reid, I'll call you that from now on. But I think that was to really kind of dig into it. I think that is where that needs assessment, or whatever you're calling it, the sector study, does all of that, like from what sectors could we look at and industries could we attract as a region, and then what specific communities are best suited to attract certain things, and then at the end of the day, we still have our autonomy to say, no, we don't want that here. So anyways, just building on. I don't know if I misspoke in any of that, but having spent 8 years there, that was my takeaway.
And if I may, through Deputy Mayor to Mayor Chenong, you're absolutely right. And I think it's one of those things as I've become more involved in this community, the benefits that Cochrane has from job creation in the region is something that I think provides a value to all Cochranites, as we obviously work towards trying to provide additional employment opportunities within our municipality. Creating those job opportunities within the region is a benefit to us as well and our citizens.
Okay, thanks.
Being that there's no other questions, I just have a couple comments, and certainly not on either side of this, but obviously this is a voluntary initiative. If we decided to not participate over the 3 years, I imagine there's no penalty or anything. We can just choose to not participate.
Yep, through the chair. Yes, there is a notice, and we could give 12 months notice and not be a part of IGC moving forward.
And I think probably the other question that's going to come forward is if there's a financial ask that's greater than the predicted $9,000 a year, I imagine that would also come back for further council discussion and budgetary.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's all the questions that I had, because I'm sure they're going to probably come up from the community overall. So with that being no other questions, thank you for the presentation, and we'll see you next week. And we have one last business item, and that is the natural gas distribution system franchise agreement. And Stacy Lowe is Executive Director, Corporate Services, is at the podium.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. This evening, I'm here to speak to you about the ATCO Gas Pipeline Franchise Agreement. We are at the stage of the agreement where the existing agreement is expiring as of December 31st, 2025. Therefore, to ensure continuity of service as well as compliance with the regulatory requirements, the renewal process begins with this being brought in front of you. The proposed term is intended to be another 10-year term that is consistent with all of the agreements that we have entered into with ATCO previously. It is required to be adopted by bylaw, which is why you are seeing it presented in that way. There are not any significant changes in this renewal from previous agreements for the franchise agreement, and it is not our intention to change our franchise fees through this process. There is a process where that is evaluated annually, where ATCO sends us information by September 1st of each year, and we evaluate that at that time. So what is before you is bylaw 16. It is proposed to come before the July 14th council meeting for first reading. Thereafter, we are required to publish public notice in accordance with the AUC regulations. Residents are provided a 14-day response window. Thereafter, we send those comments that we received and any responses that we provide back to ATCO. They then proceed with their submission to the AUC. However, there's a 45-day window where they have to wait for their AUC application after the public notice period. So there is quite a long duration of process that's required. Therefore, we anticipate that second and third reading are likely to come back before council in the late fall. So it is likely that it will come before the newly elected council for second and third reading. Upon it coming back for, I'm sorry, I lost it's a thing this evening. The renewal agreement, I did want to say, is consistent with the previous agreements. That agreement, the draft agreement, was actually updated in the last rendition. So in 2015, the municipality, myself included, did take part in the consultation that was engaged through Alberta Municipalities, AUMA at the time. And then this agreement is reflective of that same agreement. So again, no significant changes, just simply a renewal. With that, I am prepared to answer any questions that council may have.
No questions? I do have a couple of questions for you. I'm just wondering why the 10-year agreement? Is that just kind of standard of signing a 10-year agreement?
Yeah, so the 10 years seems to be the standard. It has been the standard throughout, and it remained the standard in the updated template in 2015. And if we don't renew, it essentially ends up being a bit of a month-to-month, except that they start to reduce our franchise fee revenue until the new agreement is entered into. But there is a process for that if we weren't to complete the renewal agreement.
And I did read that we're paying a 20% franchise fee. Is that similar to what other communities are paying?
I think I had a thought that might come up. So I can tell you, we are sitting at 20% for Fortis, 17% for Fortis, 20% for ATCO. This is just the ATCO agreement though, but we thought it would be good information to share. So the threshold, the maximum that we can charge is 35%. We are probably on the lower side, to be honest, in consideration of the rest of the communities around us at present. But again, it is something that we evaluate in the fall and whether or not, and then bring that forward to council for your decision on whether or not you would like us to consider an increase. But at this stage, we're not suggesting that at this time.
Perfect. Can you send this out to council? That would probably be very helpful. Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, thank you very much. I always get asked this question. I can never answer it well, so hopefully you can answer it better for me. So, I mean, the franchise fees are essentially like it's a flow-through cost. It ends up on our residents' bills. But at the end of the day, what do we use franchise fees for? Are they limited to certain aspects, or what is the? Yeah. How do our residents benefit from the franchise fee?
Sure. So ultimately, I'm going to back up a little bit. So what the franchise fee essentially is for is we're collecting that in exchange for providing ATCO with the exclusive right to operate their natural gas facilities within our rights of ways and provide natural gas to our residents. Part of what the fee is for that right, for that exclusive right that they get to operate within our rights of ways and provide those services. And so what the revenue that we receive from that goes back into our general revenue. So in the grand scheme of things, it essentially offsets the total revenue that we need from our community, from the taxpayers directly, every single time that we look at our annual budget. So we know that this revenue is coming in, and it's based on a user pay sort of model, because your rider and the amount that you're paying is based on your consumption as well. So but where that revenue comes in, it's not restricted to anything in particular. It does go into our general revenue. There is also, that's the Fortis one, so I'm going to leave that alone. I was going to start talking about Fortis in my brain. But no, that ATCO revenue comes back into general revenue. So it offsets your overall operating cost of your government.
Right, so essentially, we charge the utility companies for the right to use our public lands to provide the services to their customers. We set that fee, we're on the lower edge of what that is, and then that revenue comes back to the municipality, and we use it in our general revenues to offset your municipal services.
That's correct.
Okay, I've never had a straight, simple sentence like that before, so thank you for that.
With that being that there's no other questions, thank you for the presentation, and we'll look forward to, next week.
Thank you.
All right, council, that wraps up the business section of the agenda. We do have one in-camera item, and so I do need a motion to go in camera. All in favor? That's put unanimously.